Good evening. Apologies for the technical issues there. Good evening. Our top story tonight, the NFL draft is wrapping up. Day 3 is over. So we are wasting no time here at Player Profiler today, and we are going to cover the winners and losers of day 3 of the NFL draft. If you've seen the thumbnail, you'll know we'll talk Troy Franklin, Javon Baker, Kamani Vidal, and a bunch of others, and it all starts right now on Player Profiler today. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Player Profiler. Today, I'm your Saturday host, Matt Babich. Happy to have you here on day 3 of the NFL draft. We are either at a close to the draft or nearing it, as it's the end of day 3. We've basically got all of the important picks out of the way. And so let's hop right into it and talk some winners and losers. So winner number 1 of day 3 of the NFL draft, he started off as one of the biggest losers of draft day. Once, at the end of the college football season, thought of as potentially a first-round pick. And then sliding ever since the NFL Combine, Troy Franklin lands with the Denver Broncos to kick off day 3. And he's easily the biggest winner of day 3 because he gets paired with his college quarterback, Bo Nix, in a starting receiving role. So, yes, the draft capital being day 3 is always a bad sign. But the way I look at it is this. If Denver would have felt the need to trade up a few picks back up into the 3rd round, and he became a day 2 pick to the same team, would we be treating him differently just because he was a 3rd round pick and not a 4th round pick? And luckily for Denver, they didn't have to make that decision. They didn't have to trade up. They didn't have to spend any capital. They knew they were going to get their guy in the 4th round. And after trading Jerry Jeudy, Troy Franklin now steps into the starting Z role in Denver. It's not going to be Marvin Mims. It's going to be Troy Franklin unless he truly just doesn't figure it out throughout the rookie mini camp, training camp process, which is possible. But if he does and he connects with Bo Nix like he did at Oregon, he is going to step into the starting Z role. And let's first start by kind of taking a look at Troy Franklin's prospect profile. I know for some film analysts, they didn't necessarily like what they saw on Troy Franklin, but he has 90th percentile speed, 80th percentile burst. He's a little bit on the lighter side, but has the height. He broke out before age 20 at 76th percentile, and he recorded 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns with Bo Nix at Oregon in 2023. So this is a talented receiver. He has this size, speed combination. He's a little bit on the lighter side, but as a true deep threat, I'm not as concerned about that. This is a limited prospect, yes, but lands in probably the most perfect situation for him because he gets tethered to his college quarterback, somebody who he's already developed that chemistry with. Both of these men are rookies going into the NFL. So when Bo Nix is looking to adjust, figure out the offense, it's natural that he's going to have an affinity for Troy Franklin out on the field because they have that chemistry together. It's a real thing that impacts playing ability. And the other reasons I love this for the Denver offense, besides the familiarity, is that because he's that true deep threat, they can now run Courtland Sutton in a much more consolidated route tree and not worry about him being the one to take the top off the defense, especially in 2 receiver sets. And that's huge because in order for the defense to be able to stay honest on the Denver Broncos, you either had to run out 11 personnel or at least 3 receivers on the field to get Marvin Mims or somebody else in there that can be a true serious deep threat. Or you had to run Courtland Sutton up top because he had the best size speed combination, boundary catch, contested catch ability out of the entire Denver Broncos receiving core. So this is going to allow him to run more digs, comebacks, slants, things that are higher probability to be converted into catches. Those are targets that are more fantasy friendly targets than just straight up deep balls or sideline shots. So this is going to open up Courtland Sutton's game a lot. So I like this fit schematically for the Denver Broncos much more than Jerry Jeudy. And so Troy Franklin, who we looked like might get buried in the mountain of day 3 picks, somehow lands a starter in all of this. And I'll tell you what, the biggest winners of day 3 are also the people that stick to Troy Franklin and take the discount. Yeah, we know now that the mocks going 108 through 110 or through 112 for Troy Franklin were way off. That's why we do mock drafts and figure out the landing spots. So now he's going to be probably a late second round pick. I would be shocked if he settles in the early third, even despite the draft capital, simply because of the opportunity that's available. So he's likely going to end up being a late second round pick after the steam. And if he's not, if he's anywhere in the third round or later, I'm going to take him because I don't care that he was barely a fourth round pick and not a third round pick. I care that he's in a wonderful situation, the best situation Troy Franklin could possibly be in, no matter what the draft capital was. That's what I care about, and that's why I'm going to be drafting Troy Franklin in my dynasty leagues. Winner number 2 is Javon Baker. The Pats traded out. My Patriots, they did not screw up their first pick. They screwed up their second pick. They didn't sit and take Ladd McConkey. Instead, they wanted Jalen Polk instead of Ladd McConkey. So they traded back, knowing the Chargers were coming up for McConkey. And they took Jalen Polk instead of Adonai Mitchell. So that was mistake number 2 on that same pick. But they came away with Jalen Polk, a receiver who I really like. Maybe not the right receiver to take there, but then they followed it up with Javon Baker. And ever since this guy was drafted, he's made it more clear that he's a winner here. So we talk about target competition. There really isn't any. It's still Hunter Henry as a receiver or tight end who's projected to lead this team in targets. So Javon Baker steps in, potentially the team's wide receiver 1. It's not going to be Pop Douglas as much as I like him. It's probably not going to be Jalen Polk. I know it's not going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. It could be KJ Osborne, but when we talk about pure talent and just that alpha mentality, that's what Javon Baker has. So speaking on being drafted to the Patriots, he said, quote, "Bring your popcorn. I make people in wheelchairs stand up," end quote. That's what you want in your wide receiver 1. That's the type of attitude you want. The metrics aren't there at UCF. He did dominate the team's targets and production, but UCF was a struggling offense, and thus his box score stats really aren't there. And he was a mid-tier breakout, about a 50th percentile breakout. So nothing truly stands out in his college production profile besides the fact that he was able to dominate amongst receivers at UCF. And then in his athletic profile, he's not very fast. He has median percentile burst. So he's not a typical analytical prospect, but he's a very solid receiver and solid route runner. I have a tweet from the wide receiver whisperer. Well, first of all, I have 2 bits of information from wide receiver whisperers. So Steve Smith, he did his comps on the entire receiver class, and he comped Javon Baker to Brandon Lloyd. And it's a really promising comp from somebody who knows the position as well as Steve Smith. Brandon Lloyd, for those who are too young, I'm even slightly too young to remember, but Brandon Lloyd was just an incredible receiver. And when you look at the body control, the sideline knowledge that Brandon Lloyd had, making some of these incredibly tough catches look incredibly easy, contorting his body like an acrobat in the air to make these tough catches. That's the type of ability that Javon Baker showed at UCF. When the ball's in the air, it's his ball. And that's the way his mind works. And similarly, Matt Harmon from Reception Perception, also kind of put together his thoughts on Javon Baker. And I'll share this tweet here on the screen. And so this is Javon Baker's route tree, courtesy of Reception Perception, Matt Harmon on Twitter. It's kind of covered up here in the top right corner, but at Matt Harmon _BYB. You can find him on Twitter there. And you can find him on receptionperception.com if you haven't done so. He's one of my favorite content creators for receivers. He charts all of these guys personally, looks at their success by route, and this is a very impressive route tree for Javon Baker. And so you can see that flat and comeback didn't really have any data there. So he's hardly running flats and comeback routes. So he had a limited route tree at UCF, but that could be more scheme and playbook and quarterback talent driven more than anything else. But we look at all greens really besides the dig and the screen. And with Javon Baker's size speed combination, we wouldn't expect him to be used much in the screen game at the NFL level anyway. So there, we don't have to put too much thought into that. And then the dig really should be better. But as a rookie in the league and as a 4th round pick, having this route tree is very impressive. And so Matt Harmon said that both Javon Baker and Jalen Polk were priority day 2 ads. So Matt Harmon pinned Javon Baker for a day 2 prospect. I think a lot of us knew that he had that upside to him, but when you look at him coming from UCF and his production, while impressive, not awe-inspiring, it's not shocking that he fell to the 4th round in the NFL draft, especially given this wide receiver class. So I'm not putting too much stock into the fact that he's a 4th round pick because once again, he lands in such a good situation that it's hard to ignore the opportunity that's in front of him. He's a talented player, very talented player. And because he's not an analytical darling, he isn't an analytical darling, but because he's in such a good situation, there's a chance that the opportunity is going to outweigh that no matter what. So even if you were underweight on Javon Baker as a prospect, you have to weight this knowing that he could still walk away with 100+ targets in 2023. And it probably wouldn't be that hard for him to get there given the target competition. So Javon Baker, winner number 2. And the last of our top 3 winners is Kamani Vidal. So the running back out of Troy that was very heavily talked about from the moment the Senior Bowl ended. He has a real opportunity to be a day 1 opportunity earner in the Los Angeles Chargers backfield. So stepping into a backfield filled with J.K. Dobbins coming off his 3rd major leg surgery and never really playing a healthy season in the league, and Gus Edwards, a between the tackles plotter that's best known as being a goal line back. He steps in with likely the most explosiveness and definitely the best pass catching profile among these 3 running backs. And that's why he has the potential to come out and be the 3rd down, long down and distance, 2-minute drill, passing situations weapon for the Los Angeles Chargers. And, we look at his production at Troy, got up to 1,600 yards last year, had 3 seasons with over 20 receptions. He is a playmaker. He has 87th percentile speed. He has near 80th percentile burst and agility. He is a weapon, and he steps into an offense where their lead back has health concerns, and we don't really know what his explosiveness is going to look like now. Every time you suffer one of these injuries, your career longevity and your 100%, right? In his day, even last year, game 1, J.K. Dobbins looked very explosive. But yet another major leg surgery is going to change that. So Kamani Vidal has the most juice out of this backfield. He has the best pass catching chops out of this backfield. So it's not going to surprise me at all when Kamani Vidal is earning opportunities from day 1 in LA. And thusly, I will have a lot of Kamani Vidal in my drafts. There were a lot of opportunities for Vidal to go to a clustered backfield and just completely erode his upside. And that didn't happen. So because of this landing spot, we're going to see Kamani Vidal in a very friendly day one situation. This is a landing spot. People were hoping Trey Benson or somebody of that caliber to step into this Chargers offense. And so now we get a discounted version of somebody who could be cracking that same percentage of opportunity, but in the passing game primarily where fantasy points come the most. So we are going to get into more winners and losers in just a minute. We have 5 more winners for you and some losers as well. We are going to be right back with winners and losers on Player Profiler today after a brief message from the Podfather.
It is NFL draft season and the wait is over. The Player Profiler Rookie Guide is available. It's live on the site now. Right there in the nav bar, click on the 2024 Rookie Guide to download it. It's so comprehensive. We're ranking and writing up more players than anybody. And this year, we're providing athleticism scores. We're doubling the number of advanced stats on each player profile. And guess who's back? Cody Carpentier. But it's not just him. It's Theo. It's Matty Kiwoom. It's John Lobb. And the Undroppables. All coming together to provide their composite rankings. And this year we're adding Superflex Tight End Premium because that's now become such a popular format. So get those composite ranks, get the write-ups, the comps, the stats and metrics you want. If you already have Dynasty Lux, you already have it. But if you don't, it's right there in the nav bar on playerprofiler.com. It's $20. It's not the first. It's not the most expensive, but it is the best.
Go get the rookie guide now on playerprofiler.com. You can also find my contribution with Xavier Worthy's right up in the rookie guide. So go get it. It's only $20. If you have the Dynasty Deluxe, you already have it. So that comes with that package. An incredible product for some incredible fantasy analysts. So do yourself a favor and go get that prior to your rookie drafts to read up on these prospects more, especially these day 3 guys. So we covered our top 3 winners before the break: Troy Franklin, Javon Baker, and Kamani Vidal. We're going to go through some more winners here a little bit faster here, as we got about 9 more prospects here on my show sheet to cover. But we got Jaylen Wright is winner number 4. Well, first of all, shout out to your PPR management here in the YouTube chat. Get the all-in package worth every penny. Absolutely. With Player Profiler tools, you have all of the ability to do all of your research that you want, just all there in one site. And really, if you play in a lot of leagues, it pays for itself with how well you do in those leagues, the money you rake in. So do yourself a favor and go get that. But Jaylen Wright gets drafted to the Dolphins. We were wondering where Jaylen was going to get drafted. He was yet another Senior Bowl winner, guy whose draft stock was reportedly rising because of the Senior Bowl. And, he did get that day 3 draft capital, but day 3 draft capital is big for running backs. I mean, we see the average draft capital of running backs fall. And so when your position is rarely ever selected in the first round, we might have to start reevaluating what draft capital means for some of these day 3 picks, because so many of them fall to the late second or the late third. And these running backs take so long to come off the board that it's very standard for talented running backs to go day 3 in the NFL draft. But Jaylen Wright is certainly among one of the most talented day 3 backs that were selected in this pool. He has 95th percentile speed and 95th percentile burst, and coming out of Tennessee, had the 95th percentile college yards per carry, and also played a role in the passing game with the 6.4% college target share, which is 44th percentile. He now steps into a Miami Dolphins offense, which, as you know, has Raheem Mostert, a 31 or 32-year-old running back who continues to get older and dwindle in speed. And so this is not a year 1 win for Jaylen Wright. That's why he's not in the top 3, but the offensive fit is why he's still in the top 5, because he's in the Dolphins offense. Now, if anything were to happen to Devon Achane, who showed some proneness to injury, I'll say. I don't like to call people injury prone, but he got hurt a couple of times last season. And Raheem Mostert, who is, he took a beating last year. He took a lot of carries, a lot of goal line touches, and he's going to be another year older. And so he has the potential to miss some time due to injury too. And really then all he has to do is beat out Jeff Wilson to be that RB3 that's plugged in injury situations. And he is what they say, one injury away from having significant opportunity in this backfield. And that's impressive. That's a really a picture perfect kind of situation for a guy like Jaylen Wright to go. I think we would have preferred to go into a situation like Los Angeles where he had more ability to step in day one and kind of get some opportunities in this offense. But again, Raheem Mostert is not going to be there forever, and he's not going to be a 12 touchdown guy every year. And so Jaylen Wright is a huge winner for us. And because of this YouTube comment, I'm going to skip down to winner number 8. Order doesn't really matter here anyway, but winner number 8 is Tyrone Tracy. Shout out to Dominic for the comment. Tyrone Tracy will start a game this year for the Giants. I wholeheartedly agree. So Tyrone Tracy coming out of Purdue, you look at the box score stats, it's obviously not impressive, but that's because he spent 3 seasons as a wide receiver at Iowa. I do believe he started the conversion prior to joining Purdue, but once joining Purdue, switched and became a running back instead of a receiver, which that's the immediate green light, right? Tyrone Tracy is a pass catcher at heart. So he immediately has the best pass catching chops because he was a D1 wide receiver before playing running back. And so even though Motor Singletary is a good pass catcher, and he's not the athlete and the pass catcher that Tyrone Tracy Jr. is. So he immediately steps in as we'll call it the Kenny Gainwell to this offense, and comes in with 77th percentile speed, 93rd percentile burst, and 96th percentile agility. The only thing is, he is over 200 pounds. He's 210 pounds at 5'11". The way to spell Devin Singletary, as I've noted for multiple seasons now, is by being a good pass blocker. So that's going to be the big key for Tyrone Tracy Jr. He does land in a situation where he could see a fair target share and some scripted rushes. I think how good of an athlete he is in a Brian Daboll offense where he can really put him in the slot. He can get some jet motions, some 2 backfield sets. There's a lot of things that Brian Daboll is going to be able to do with Tyrone Tracy Jr. And that's obviously the base good. He has the ability to get involved early on. If he can become a good pass blocker, that's how he's truly going to overtake that Devin Singletary role. But agreed that right now that Tyrone Tracy Jr. is in a wonderful spot as a New York Giant. I couldn't be happier for him as a Boilermaker myself. So he's one of our winners. He's an easy winner, and so is Roman Wilson. So a lot of people thought that the Steelers were going to trade for Brandon Ayuk or take maybe Adonai Mitchell or another receiver in the draft, but they opted to go for Roman Wilson, who, again, not a guy whose analytical profile is going to jump out at you. 61st percentile speed. He's 5'11", 185, so not the biggest guy. And box score stats, didn't put over 800 yards at any season with Michigan. He did, though, have an 82nd percentile college dominator rating. So again, we have to remember that he played at Michigan, the most run-heavy team that we've ever seen. And yes, he was a late breakout, but this is also, again, from the creators of 8 pass attempts in a close game against Penn State. That's the kind of offense that we're working with here. So even on a 44th percentile college target share, so on a sub-average college target share, he put up a near 90th percentile college dominator rating. So that really shows how much he was able to do with what he was given in this Michigan offense. And he goes to a situation where he can earn targets very early on. We've seen some of the slot work that he was able to put up in Michigan, and I see him being a Deontay Johnson fill-in in that way. We know they're not going to use George Pickens this way. They're not going to use Calvin Austin that way. But Roman Wilson really fits as that guy who can maneuver the first 1 to 8 yards of the field and get himself open, whether that's from slants, finding the open hole in a zone cross or out routes, whip routes, anything that requires that kind of technical prowess, because that's what Roman Wilson excels at, is his release and his route running. And so he goes into a situation where he could earn targets right off the bat in Pittsburgh. And his talent profile really shows as somebody who can step in and fill that Deontay Johnson role really early on in his NFL career. All right, so what do we think of the Spencer Rattler and Jordan Travis spots? So for Jordan Travis, it's one of the better situations that he could step into, right? So he's going to be the backup now in New York, and if he can really learn from Aaron Rodgers, we saw a lot of positives to Jordan Travis's game last year. In my opinion, was one of the reasons why Keon Coleman was so good, because Jordan Travis was able to put that ball on a dime because Keon Coleman can't separate. So when Keon Coleman's in a tight window downfield, Jordan Travis knows exactly where to put that ball to get Keon Coleman the catch and the yardage. We've seen him throw some really nice back shoulders to Keon Coleman in the end zone. We saw the ability to run and maneuver around the pocket. So Jordan Travis has a lot of pros to his game. So if he is smart enough to really absorb the information from Aaron Rodgers, the football information, we'll hope that maybe some of the outside of football information doesn't get absorbed. But if he can really sit there and learn from Aaron Rodgers, he has the physical tools to get it done. Ultimately, I don't really think Jordan Travis is going to be a guy in the NFL. I do think he has some bright spots, but probably the best situation that Jordan Travis could go to, because he goes to a veteran quarterback, a very good leader of quarterbacks, a good teacher of the quarterback position, as we know, who's on his way out of the league, and he gets to learn from him, will have the potential to compete for that backup job. And if he's talented enough, take over the starting job. So he's got the next 2 seasons to figure out how to maneuver this. So Jordan Travis landed in one of the better spots that he could land, being that he can get mentored and potentially hand the keys over to him if he shows that. And then if not, stick around long enough to maybe spell out any other draft picks or free agent signings that are made to fill that position. And then Spencer Rattler going to the Saints, that's one I love. I love Spencer Rattler to the Saints. Derek Carr is a statue. He's not very good. Spencer Rattler's gonna have opportunity to play in year one, because Carr is awful, and he's also, I'm gonna call him injury prone. I don't like to do that, but Derek Carr he's getting battered and bruised, and it's because he can't really move around the pocket, and he also was struggling as a passer last year. I know part of that's probably due to health concerns, but Spencer Rattler might be a better passer than Derek Carr right now. It's a very real chance. And so the Saints, who are probably going to be average at best again, are going to roll Derek Carr out there, and Spencer Rattler, I'm highly confident that he's going to earn the backup job. And whether it's in relief via injury or relief via benching, Spencer Rattler is going to play in year one. And so this is one of the better, again, for both of those players, Spencer Rattler and Jordan Travis, those are some better landing spots that you can land in. Spencer Rattler was actually on the winners list, so we take out another winner there. And then Dominic in the chat, we talked about the Vidal landing spot. He was the third winner, actually. So we talked about him right before the break, and he's one of our biggest winners, has the opportunity, kind of like you said, to really crack into that lineup and earn some opportunity early on, being the best pass catching running back and possibly the most explosive running back in that backfield. We're at 30 minutes, but it's the NFL draft. We're going to keep going. So let's clear out a couple of these last few winners here. Malik Washington, a hyper productive receiver out of Virginia, was selected by the Miami Dolphins. I did not get his player profile up, but a 94th percentile dominator rating for Malik Washington. He was the lifeblood of that Virginia passing game. 98th percentile college target share. Took him a while to break out, but then this is one of the reasons why he had drawbacks. He's comped to Zay Flowers on playerprofiler.com. And that's what's most exciting here, is that his analytical profile really kind of lines up with a guy like Zay Flowers. And you think about inserting a Zay Flowers-esque talent into the slot role in Miami, and that's obviously really exciting. Once again, Mike McDaniels finds a really good scheme fit in Malik Washington. And Braxton Berrios was a guy, again, it was a dumb take of mine, but being the third receiver in this offense, I saw some hope for Braxton Berrios last year. And now we actually get someone in that role who has the same abilities of route running, finding the open hole in zones, being dynamic, but is actually good at football. No disrespect to Braxton Berrios, but he's also going to be able to learn from two very talented receivers in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So Malik Washington, one of my favorite winners here. Harry Snowman has worked his way over to the chat. That's how you know the draft day YouTube stream is probably over. Yes, it was. It was a very fun weekend. How's it going, Harry? Thanks for stopping by as always. Dylan Laub out of New Hampshire finds his way to Philadelphia. And so if anyone's seen the meme where the guy's looking into the camera like this and says, "Who want me?" on an Instagram poll, and the answer is no, 0%. That's Howie Roseman to Kenny Gainwell. All right, it's over. He's had this opportunity in this role year after year after year, and the Eagles just keep finding ways to not give him the ball. And so now they draft in Dylan Laub, who was a productive player out of New Hampshire. I almost said Vermont. 86th percentile college dominator rating, best compared to Chase Edmonds on playerprofiler.com. Has the pass catching chops to really kick Kenny Gainwell out of his role in Philadelphia. So what kind of looked like as a mundane pick, Laub is a guy who I'm going to stash because he's going to be dirt cheap behind Saquon Barkley, and many people may think still behind Kenny Gainwell at this point. He's a guy who I think the talent can find a way to get Kenny Gainwell off the field. A couple of big plays in the preseason, and he's going to find himself in a competition with Kenny Gainwell for that role, which is already a reduced role because of Saquon Barkley. Oh, thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. I knew when I put it in the show sheet, it didn't feel right, and I just kept going on. Will Shipley went to the Eagles, Laub to the Raiders, which okay, so let me backtrack there for a second. I do think Shipley is a bit of a mundane pick, but same reasons that I'm putting out here with Dylan Laub. Has the agility, has the pass catching profile. I do think that Shipley can compete with Kenny Gainwell for that pass catching, long down and distance, 2-minute drill role. Only issue there is for fantasy, Saquon Barkley is a much better pass catcher than DeAndre Swift, and is ultimately going to be taking up a lot of those touches himself. But as PPR management is saying in the chat, thank you for backing me up there. It's pretty much the same reason there for the Raiders. The benefit to Dylan Laub is that there's no alpha running back or workhorse running back in Vegas. I'm a big fan of Zamir White's game, but he had a 4-game stretch. That's all we've seen of him with a high touch count, and he played well. But it's not like Josh Jacobs is in there. It's not like Saquon Barkley's in there. This is kind of an open backfield with Zamir White. And we know that Zamir White definitely can't catch passes. So for all the reasons that we would, like Shipley in an Eagles offense, the level of opportunity that's available for Dylan Laub is very impressive. So yeah, it is a long weekend, man. It's insane. Just trying to, you watch so much draft coverage and then you go to this, you start to put a show sheet together, and I'm going on and I'm reviewing the picks because 10 picks in the 5th round go, and I already forget who was drafted in the 3rd. I mean, so many things are happening, but we'll close it out with our last winner and then quickly go into some losers before we close out the show. Brendan Rice going to the Chargers is a big winner. Chargers, outside of Ladd McConkey, didn't really do much to shore up that receiver room. And really, Brendan Rice has the opportunity to step in as a starting receiver for this team. He's going to be competing with Quentin Johnston for playing time. But as you know, if you've seen me talk about Quentin Johnston before, I think that's a good bet to make as a player. So gets late round draft capital. A lot of times we see these guys like Johnny Wilson, who's one of our losers, get slapped into an Eagles team with a very heavily consolidated target share, a lot of surrounding talent, and it's tough to break out in those rooms. Brendan Rice has to compete with Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston. And so the fight for playing time for Brendan Rice isn't going to be significant. And the Los Angeles Chargers kind of correct their mistake last year, and they take the hometown receiver, Brendan Rice, staying home in Los Angeles. And that's a unique experience for a college player to step into. So I'm sure the gratitude of being able to stay home in Los Angeles and play for that city some more alongside Justin Herbert is really going to motivate him. And Brendan Rice has talent. We're talking about a guy who cracked a 30% dominator rating in an offense with Caleb Williams, who loved to spread the ball around. He was not a guy who needed to fixate on his first read, which is why his dominator rating and college target share aren't superb. But what he did do was he broke out before age 19 in this offense. And that was at Colorado. So not in that offense, but he broke out before age 19 at Colorado, transferred to USC, where he went into a Caleb Williams offense that never was really going to feed him a 40% target share because he's not an alpha, but he is kind of that beta plus that can find success in the NFL. He's got 78th percentile speed at 6'2" plus 200 pounds. So he has that frame. I love Brendan Rice to step in here and be productive. And we have Frank Gore Jr. signed by the Bills as a UDFA. Really like that signing. We look at backfields that are still pretty wide open, and the Buffalo Bills are among those. James Cook is there, but Frank Gore Jr. can do something that James Cook can't really, and that's carry goal line touches. So as long as that role is open for competition, Frank Gore Jr. has a window to fantasy relevance because those touches are so valuable. It's going to be hard to predict him. He's probably not going to be playable in year one, but it's an opening to opportunity, which, as we know, opportunity is the biggest predictor of future opportunity. So a very good fit there for Frank Gore on both sides. And then, so let's talk about some losers, some bad fits. Braylon Allen, RIP, goes to the Jets, where he now has to compete for touches with Breece Hall, the best or second best running back in the NFL. I mean, talk about a nightmare scenario. There are about 3, maybe 5 running backs in the NFL where if you're stuck in an offense behind them, you are truly screwed. And unfortunately, Breece Hall is one of those running backs. Now, Braylon Allen is kind of a bowling ball. So the plus here for him in his career is that he's going to get some short yardage work, spell Breece Hall. He's going to get some goal line touches, but he's not going to have a fantasy relevant role. And it's going to be tough for him to break out as a true playmaker, a true guy who's worth a solid second contract with Breece Hall in his way. So, I mean, Braylon Allen is easily the biggest loser of day 3. And then you have Johnny Wilson, who I briefly mentioned. He goes to an Eagles team that already has A.J. Brown, already has Devonta Smith, already has Dallas Goedert, and then Saquon Barkley in the backfield taking up pass catches. It's going to be one of the most consolidated target shares in the NFL. And he comes as a guy who had a limited prospect profile, not an analytical darling. So it's going to take a lot for him to get playing time in this offense. And so he's easily one of the biggest losers as well. And then among quarterbacks, probably the worst fit, the worst landing spot, biggest loser among quarterbacks, or at least among the relevant quarterbacks, is Joe Milton. So Joe Milton lands with the Patriots in kind of a perplexing move with one of their last draft picks of the year. They choose to draft kind of a hedge or bet situation with Joe Milton. I didn't get it personally, but they selected Joe Milton. So, I mean, Joe Milton just has zero chance of playing time. He's got to get to like year 3 of Drake May being profoundly bad to start seeing some playing time, because they're going to have Brissett around for the next 2 seasons. And Brissett is one of the most steady and capable backups in this league. Not somebody you can go win a Super Bowl with, but somebody you can win games with. We saw what he did in the first half of the season with Cleveland before Deshaun Watson came back, played better than him when Deshaun was healthy that season. So you already have an impossible backup barrier to break without injury. And so Joe Milton's just stuck at the bottom of this Patriots roster. Felt like a real wasted pick to me. I didn't understand it, but among players to just continue to take shots on in the NFL draft, quarterback is probably the safest way to use your draft capital. So as somebody who I follow in this industry, Eric Eager likes to say drafting quarterbacks is okay business at worst. So, I think I butchered that quote, but essentially to say drafting a quarterback is always somewhat of a good move because quarterback is the most premium position in the NFL. The Atlanta Falcons took that advice a little too literally, but it is good advice. And then finally, the last prospect that I have here listed under my losers. I'm sure I could find more, but honestly, there were a lot of picks in day 3 that we weren't really expecting to be fantasy relevant to begin with. So all these guys are kind of in bad situations. So, I didn't want to spend too much time going over them, but Jace McClellan, a running back that we would have preferred to land in an open backfield, not a guy who had much going for him on his prospect profile. He did have near 900 rushing yards at Alabama. He does have some skill to boast, but he's not going to have any opportunity being selected by the Falcons. Like I said, you have 3 to 5 running backs that you're just never going to be able to break out from behind. And Bijan Robinson is one of them. They also have Tyler Algier, who is a very capable running back. And Jace McClellan is now dust. Isaac Guerendo actually is another one that comes to mind. I think Guerendo's a loser. Jason Allwine, who I have a lot of love and respect for, said that this is the final nail in the coffin for Elijah Mitchell, and I couldn't disagree more, because Elijah Mitchell has proven the ability to be the backup to Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers. He's been an effective running back. He's actually been nothing but impactful when he's in the game. He just isn't needed a lot because Christian McCaffrey is who he is. And Guerendo doesn't guarantee anything better than Elijah Mitchell right now. So I think it's going to be difficult for Guerendo to get out from behind those two. Even if he does break the Elijah Mitchell barrier, he's still the backup to Christian McCaffrey, who's going to have, top 3 opportunity share in the league among running backs at the end of the season. So again, just buried in the depth chart, a guy who had talent. But, a guy like Dylan Laub ends up being a winner because he lands in Las Vegas, where Guerendo doesn't have that same favor and falls to a much worse situation in San Francisco. That is 45 minutes. That is 9 winners and 5 losers of the 2024 NFL Draft. Thank you all for joining me. Comments were kind of popping this live stream, so I appreciate you all for coming by and supporting the program tonight on day 3 of the NFL Draft. Long weekend comes to a close, and It is officially rookie draft season. The NFL draft is now over, and we can start thinking about what to do with these rookie picks. So I appreciate you all for tuning in. Dominic, I did not talk Ali to the Ravens. It's a good landing spot, but not necessarily one of my top 10 winners. I probably won't have too much exposure to him, but it's a great situation to monitor, and going to be one of those guys where when you hit the late rounds, the 4th, 5th round, going to be a guy that you're going to want to have some exposure to, just because he's in a good situation there in Baltimore. So, thank you, PPR management. Appreciate you tuning in today. So thank you all for tuning in. Once again, you can find me on this channel, Player Profiler Today, every Saturday at 6 p.m. You can also find me and Seth Dewald on the Dynasty Roundtable podcast Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Central on the main Player Profiler YouTube page. So NFL draft is over. Celebrate, rest, and get ready for rookie draft season. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great weekend.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.